Hi everyone, welcome to the webinar and workshop series conducted by TCS in lieu of the upcoming SCS exams happening in November 2025. My name is Nick and I'm the lead tutor and evaluator for SCS at TCS. So let's look at the session outcomes. First things first, I'm going to take you through the examiner's blueprint, thereby directing your attention primarily towards examiner's comments, because it's essential that you understand what the examiner expects from you in order to make sure that you are conducting preparations which are fully aligned with examiner expectations. And then I will share some tips to make sure that you are well poised to achieve a higher level of confidence in these upcoming weeks, because as you know, there's 4 weeks at your disposal in order to focus your attention towards passing this examination. So in these 4 weeks, it's essential that you take steps to improve your confidence levels, and you can only achieve this by improving your skill set. So I will be highlighting these things as the second part of today's webinar. And as the third part, I will most importantly be sharing stress management techniques. So as you know, I've already taught you answering and time management techniques, which were covered in previous week's webinar. And on top of these two techniques, you are supposed to practice stress management techniques as well when you are attempting your mock exams in the upcoming weeks. So before we get into the technicalities, let me quickly remind you of the webinars and workshops we have scheduled for you. The workshops we have scheduled for you. So after today's webinar, we are done with the webinar series, and then we are kickstarting our workshop series. And in each workshop, I will be explaining the entire syllabus concerning your F3, P3, and E3 syllabi. And at the same time, I will be taking you through a mock exam, which is aligned with each syllabus area discussed within each of these workshops, thereby explaining how we should tackle these questions and develop your answer plans in the most effective manner. And in the final workshop, which happens just 2 or 3 days before your examination, I will be sharing last minute tips with you to make sure that you are capable of succeeding at your exam. Because as I mentioned earlier, if you walk into the exam with a higher level of positivity, believing in yourself, then you can achieve extremely good marks at your upcoming examination. So just like how you would have attended the weekly webinars, I hope you will attend our workshops as well to gain an in-depth understanding of how you should conduct your preparations. And at the same time, this is the best way to keep tabs about your performance in each week. All right, so let's try to understand what the examiner tells us. So if you are to develop high quality answers, you have to always consider the relevance of your answer to each requirement. So it's essential that you gain a clear understanding of each requirement. If not, you will end up developing answers which are not aligned with the requirement. If so, you won't get any marks. So when having a chat with you guys, I asked you guys to get in touch with me, especially those who failed in the previous sitting, so that we can have a chat and get an understanding of what your shortcomings were. And when having this chat, I understood the fact that most of you failed previously, mainly given the fact that you were struggling to understand the requirement. So the examiner at this stage, at the SCS stage, is not going to be direct. The examiner is not going to mention conceptual elements. There are only a couple of question types in which the conceptual elements will be directly highlighted within the requirement, such as when your knowledge concerning ethics will be tested, and at the same time when your knowledge concerning scenario planning can be tested. These things should be mentioned in a direct manner. However, in all the other areas, the examiner is never going to directly mention which conceptual element the examiner is testing. And that is why whenever your knowledge concerning the essay framework is tested, in most instances, the examiner is simply going to say, evaluate this strategic option. Or if your knowledge concerning the Mendelow's matrix is tested, the examiner will only mention, come up with strategies to manage stakeholders. So it is your job to realize, based on the wording of each requirement, it is your job to realize what you should consider, which conceptual element which you should consider when developing your answers. And at the same time, you have to make sure that not just, you should not have just the ability to apply these conceptual elements or explain these conceptual elements. Instead, you really need to focus your attention towards applying the conceptual knowledge which you have gained via your E3, F3, and P3 syllabi when developing answers. So you will learn. I explained these things in last week's webinar when I was teaching you answering and time management techniques, and you will further learn these techniques when you watch our master classes and when you take steps to attend the upcoming workshops we have scheduled for you. So with the prime intention of ensuring that you are capable of developing answers which are fully aligned with each requirement, at last week's webinar, I asked you to reiterate each requirement in your own words in a concise manner before you develop the answer plan. So, and as per what I said last week, you are expected to do this. You are supposed to reiterate each requirement in a simpler manner with two objectives in mind. Objective number one is to gain a clear understanding of each requirement. You can achieve a clear understanding when you take steps to simplify each requirement, because if you had gone through our mock exams, you would have seen that certain requirements go for 2 or 3 lines. So it's not too easy to gain a clear understanding of a requirement when it is extremely long. So that's exactly why you have to take steps to simplify it with the prime intention of understanding the requirement clearly. And the second objective of simplifying each requirement is to make sure that you can easily check whilst developing the answer plan. You can easily refer back to a simplified requirement and see whether you are developing an answer which is aligned with the requirement. So you can gain a clear understanding by simplifying the requirement, and at the same time, you can easily check whether you are developing an answer which is 100% aligned with the requirement. So with the intention of achieving these two objectives, it's essential that you simplify each requirement in your own words in a concise manner before you develop each answer plan. So I explained these things in depth in last week's webinar. If you missed it, please go watch the recorded version. Then you will realize what I'm talking about. And also, when developing your answers, you need to show to the marker that you have learned all conceptual elements covered within your E3, F3, and P3 syllabi, and not just learned these conceptual elements. You should also show to the marker that you have an appropriate level of knowledge concerning how to apply these conceptual elements concerning the information which appears within your unseen. So in last week's webinar, I took you through a question to do with Mendelow's matrix. And when taking you through the answer, I mentioned the fact that whenever your knowledge concerning stakeholder management is tested, you know for a fact that you are supposed to utilize the Mendelow's matrix. However, it does not mean that you are supposed to explain Mendelow's matrix or the theoretical elements behind Mendelow's matrix. Instead, when developing the answer, you should utilize the knowledge which you have gained via your Mendelow's matrix when it comes to categorizing the stakeholders, because after categorizing the stakeholders based on their level of power and interest, then you can come up with appropriate mitigatory strategies. So that is exactly how you should work on your application, because always think when developing answers, always think you are actually working for this company, always think that you are actually receiving an email from your superior. And at office, when you are responding to an email or when you are responding to your superior, you are never going to explain theories or concepts. Instead, your job is to develop answers with the intention of addressing what your boss wants to address. And when doing so, with the intention of coming up with the best type of recommendations, conducting best type of evaluations, as and when necessary, you have to utilize the knowledge which you have gained via your E3, F3, and P3 syllabi. So it's a bit tough when it comes to application, because as you know, this examination is application heavy. 80% of the questions are intended to test your application skills. So if you are struggling to understand how to include conceptual elements which you have learned via your E3, P3, and F3 syllabi when developing answers, then you will end up developing highly theoretical answers. If so, you won't get good marks at this examination. So it's essential, first things first, that you learn all syllabus areas. If not, you are not in a position to develop the best type of answers. And at the same time, just learning theory won't help. You need to really work on your application skills. So that is why we have developed master classes which are aligned with each of our mock exams. When you watch these master classes, whilst teaching you the logic behind each answer, we are also explaining the conceptual element, a relevant conceptual element which is covered within each subtask of our mock exams. And at the same time, we are explaining how to apply conceptual knowledge when developing well-structured, high-quality answers. And just watching these master classes won't help. You need to conduct revision on your own to practice your application skills. That is why we have asked you to take steps to redevelop answer plans after you have watched the master classes, because when you take steps to redevelop answer plans, you are making sure that you are testing your knowledge, you are making sure to figure out whether you have gained all the necessary information, all the necessary knowledge by watching the master classes. If you still feel, after you have redeveloped your answer plans, if you still feel that you are not in a position to replicate TCS's answer plans, if you still feel that you are missing out on certain important points, keep redeveloping answer plans over and over until you are satisfied about your knowledge levels and your application skills. And also, the examiner says that if you are to gain good marks, you are supposed to develop well-structured answers. That is where the answering technique comes into play. So I said that before you finalize your answer, you are supposed to spend some time to plan out your answer or to structure your answer, or in our terms, to develop something called an answer plan. It's essential that you practice this technique when attempting each mock exam. If not, you will struggle to develop answer plans under exam conditions at your real examination. So if you don't take steps to plan out your answer, you are not focusing on the quality of the content, quality of your answer. If so, you are not going to get good marks. That's why we have shared, we have already taught you the answering technique in last week's webinar. I've taught you how to develop answer plans, and by now you should know what answer plans are. And at the same time, I expect you guys to practice this answering technique over and over whenever you are attempting our mock exams, so that you'd champion this technique before you walk into your examination. Because if you do not spend some time to structure your answer or decide what type of points you should include in your answer, then you might develop an answer which is not too good. And if so, you are going to struggle at your real examination. And your final answer should be in paragraph form. Again, I explained how you should expand answer plans, because I said, as per our answering technique, I said that you need to dedicate 30 minutes of your time to structure your answer or to develop something called an answer plan. And, once you have developed your answer plans, then you should dedicate the final 25 minutes of each section towards expanding your answer plan in paragraph form. So for each answer point which you have indicated within your or included within your answer plan, you need to develop a separate paragraph. So I explained all these things in last week's webinar. So if you missed it, please go watch it to gain an understanding of what I'm talking about. And whenever you are recommending something, whenever you are bringing an argument, you have to back it up with appropriate justifications. So when you are supposed to recommend something, you saw how to do this in the most effective manner in last week's webinar, because I took you through a question to do with Mendelow's matrix. So when you are supposed to come up with strategies to manage various different stakeholders we are dealing with at the moment, you are not simply say, okay, when managing the government, we are supposed to do this, this, and this. Instead, you are supposed to say, when managing the government, we have to do this with the intention of achieving this. So you have to come up with justifications. Just because you mention recommendations, if you have not backed it up with appropriate justifications, you are not going to get marks, because your boss is going to try to understand why you are recommending something. When conducting an evaluation, you have to bring in arguments, and each of your arguments should be backed up with appropriate justifications. If not, no one is going to believe you. So just like what you do at office, you have to replicate a similar methodology at this examination with the intention of developing high quality answers well justified answers, because if you justify your arguments, then it's easy for decision makers to understand what you have mentioned in each of your responses, in each of your answers. So if you are to develop good answers, you have to make sure that your answer is 100% aligned with the requirement. So with this in mind, before developing the answer plan, simplify each requirement in your own words in a concise manner. Then when developing answers, you have to show to the marker that you have gained appropriate conceptual knowledge, as well as you know how to apply these concepts when developing answers. So in order to learn these things, watch the master classes, and in order to refine these techniques, keep redeveloping answer plans, and also practice the answering technique, because the examiner expects you to structure your answers or plan out your answers during the exam. So if you practice this answering technique, then you will be capable to develop answer plans within just 30 minutes within each section at your exam. And whenever you are evaluating something, whenever you are recommending something, always back up your arguments with appropriate justifications. Then you can rest assured that you are taking steps to come up with high quality answers. All right, so you have to achieve these things in order to gain good marks at your examination. And let's try to understand what the examiner tells us about preparations, or what you need to do before the examination. So you are supposed to study all areas of the syllabus. So I'm not the person who is saying this. It's the examiner who is particular about this point, because why are these case study examinations? The examiner is trying to figure out, first things first, whether you have gained an appropriate level of knowledge about what is contained within your E3, F3, and P3 syllabi. Because if you have knowledge gaps, what is the point of doing this examination? What is the point of becoming CIMA qualified if you have knowledge gaps, if you don't know how to deal with the conceptual elements covered within your E3, F3, and P3 syllabi? Because after passing this examination, after becoming qualified management accountants, when running your business, or when climbing the corporate ladder, you have to come up with the best type of decisions. And in order to come up with the best type of decisions, you need to utilize the conceptual knowledge which you have gained via your E3, F3, and P3 syllabi. So if you have knowledge gaps, if you're struggling with especially F3 and P3, because if you're coming through an exemption route, you will be somewhat comfortable with your E3 syllabus, because what is contained within the E3 syllabus are covered within the previous academic qualifications which we have finished. However, especially concerning your F3 and P3 syllabi, if you are coming through an exemption route, you will have knowledge gaps. So if you want to pass this examination, you have to take steps to overcome these knowledge gaps when conducting preparations, because if you leave out any conceptual elements and think that even if this conceptual element comes at the examination, I can avoid it and score marks in the remaining subtasks, you will be gravely mistaken. Let me give you an example. For instance, students think that they are really aware of what the SAF framework is, or the suitability, acceptability, and the feasibility framework. But at the exam, they don't know how to use it. So you know what the suitability framework is, or the suitability element of the SAF framework is. You know what to consider on the acceptability and the feasibility elements. However, at the exam, there's a tendency for students to utilize the SAF framework in each and every requirement, which indicates the fact that you really don't know what the SAF framework stands for. So you should not blindly use the SAF framework unless and otherwise your knowledge concerning strategic options are tested. So let's assume the company is trying to exploit a new opportunity. And when trying to do something new, that is considered as a strategic option. So before we take steps to finalize the decision, we have to evaluate this strategic option. So when evaluating this strategic option, you are supposed to utilize the SAF framework. So under suitability, you are supposed to consider whether this strategic initiative is aligned with the current vision, mission, and values of your chosen company, the business model of your chosen company, and also you are supposed to consider whether this new strategic initiative is going to expose the company towards certain type of risks. So that's about suitability. Under acceptability, you have to consider about stakeholders, and how the main stakeholders are going to be impacted, as well as how main stakeholders are going to react to this new strategic initiative. That's about acceptability. And under feasibility, you are supposed to look at whether we have the necessary financial resources to implement a certain strategic initiative. And at the same time, we have to see whether we have other non-financial resources at our disposal, which enables us to implement this decision, implement this strategic option without any hiccups. So that is how you should utilize the SAF framework. That is when you should utilize the SAF framework. It does not mean that in each and every requirement, just because the company is trying to do something new, you are supposed to utilize the SAF framework. So I know for a fact there was a variant last time in which the first subtask was testing your knowledge about the emergent strategy, and the second variant or the second subtask was testing your knowledge about the SAF framework. Most of you, when developing the answer concerning the emergent strategy, most of you utilize the SAF framework, which highlights knowledge gaps. Why? Because the SAF framework, as I mentioned earlier, should be utilized when evaluating a strategic option, and the SAF framework is considered under the rational planning model. Whereas the extreme end, there are various different ways in which you can come up with strategies. One way is considered as the rational planning model, which is adopted by companies which are operating in stable business environments. And under the rational planning model, before finalizing a decision, you have to go through various different steps, conduct a thorough evaluation, which takes a lot of time to finalize your decision. And one certain part of this rational planning model is utilizing the SAF framework. And on the other hand, if you look at something like the emergent strategy, it has nothing to do with the rational planning model. The emergent strategy is a strategy formulation method which is adopted by companies which are operating in uncertain business environments. And the emergent strategy is a strategic planning model which is adopted by companies which are startups or which are uncertain about their future. So the SAF framework has everything to do with the rational planning model, which is used by companies at the maturity stage, which are operating in stable business environments. And at the very other end of the spectrum, you have the emergent strategy. So if you are to adopt an emergent strategy, you cannot spend a lot of time to finalize your decisions. Therefore, you should not utilize the SAF framework. So when the question is about emergent strategy, when you utilize the SAF framework, then the marker knows for a fact that you are clueless of what the SAF framework is and when to utilize the SAF framework. Therefore, you will end up losing a lot of marks. And if I was the marker, if I saw someone utilizing the SAF framework when the question was about a totally different strategic planning model, which is emergent strategy, I will never pass you, because it shows, it indicates the fact that you do not deserve to pass this examination because you have significant knowledge gaps. Because if you don't know what the SAF framework is and in which strategic planning model the SAF framework is utilized, then you have to retake this exam. So it's essential that you study all areas of the syllabus. That is why we have made sure to cover all syllabus areas across the mock exams which we have developed. So if you are planning to pass this exam simply by attempting 2 or 3 mock exams, then you are walking into the exam with knowledge gaps, because you don't know how each syllabus area can be tested at the exam. So if you are clueless of how certain conceptual elements can be tested at this examination, you will definitely be testing your luck at your exam. So this is the examiner who is telling you to study all areas of the syllabus. So that's why it's essential that you stick to our study plan, because if you do so, you will have enough time to go through all mock exams, conduct your revision based on or focused on the same mock exams. And if you take steps to revise based on the mock attempts and redeveloping answer plans, then you need not worry about passing this examination. It's essential that you gain an in-depth understanding of how each conceptual element is tested at the exam, because if you have knowledge gaps, then you are not going to pass this examination. And also, you have to work on your application skills before the examination. So that is why I mentioned the fact that whenever you are attempting a mock exam, you are supposed to attempt it under exam conditions, which gives you the opportunity to practice your answering and time management techniques. And as per our answering technique, one of the objectives of practicing the answering technique is to refine your application skills. And you are supposed to further improve your application skills when you are conducting revision, because when conducting revision as per our study plan, you are simply focused to simply supposed to focus your attention towards redeveloping answer plans. And the prime objective of redeveloping answer plans is to fine tune your application skills. So you have to learn all syllabus areas. You have to learn about application and take steps to refine your application skills. That is why I want you guys to practice all mock exams, watch the master classes, which is the easiest way to learn theory and application. And once you have learned theory and application, redevelop answer plans on your own, thereby taking steps to refine your application skills. And before the exam, you are supposed to practice tasks. And when practicing tasks, the examiner expects you to type or write full answers. So what are full answers? At your exam, you have to sit in one place across 3 hours and attempt 3 sections one after the other. That is what a full mock exam is. But when having a chat with you last week, especially concerning those who failed this examination previously, I learned the fact that you have not attempted mocks under exam conditions. And at the same time, even when attempting mock exams, there was a tendency for you to attempt the first. As you know, there are 3 sections in your paper. So there's a tendency for students to attempt the first section of a mock today, the second section tomorrow, and the third section day after tomorrow. But at the exam, you have to sit in one place across 3 hours and attempt all 3 sections one after the other. So it's essential that you get your bearings with what type of stresses you will face when trying to sit in one place across 3 hours and attempt each section one after the other. Because when conducting your practice, when practicing your mock exams, if you take breaks between sections, then you'd struggle at your exam, because it's not easy to sit in one place for 3 hours. And at the same time, from section 2 onwards, halfway through section 2 onwards, you will experience fatigue. Fatigue leads to stress. Stress leads to panic. Panic leads to brain freeze. So you might have encountered these things at your examination. You might have, tried to figure out why you were stressed at the exam, especially towards the last, 2 sections, and why you encountered brain freeze, especially towards section number 3. This happens due to fatigue setting in. So it's essential that you are exposed to these type of problems when conducting your preparations, rather than facing them for the first time at your real examination. That is exactly why I'm not the person who's saying this. The examiner wants you to practice by typing or writing full answers, because if you don't, attempt a mock exam in its entirety under exam conditions, you will struggle at your real exam, because you won't know the type of stresses you will encounter. And when you encounter these stresses, you won't know what to do to overcome these stressful situations. All right, so that's why it's essential that you stick to the study plan which we have developed, stick to what you need to do on a weekly basis, and at the same time, stick to our answering and time management techniques, which I taught you last week. If you are yet to watch the recorded version, please go watch it, which can be accessed via our student dashboard and via our YouTube handle. It's essential that you learn these 2 techniques before you start your preparations, before you start your mock attempts, and before you start your revision. All right, so that's what you're supposed to achieve before the examination. And during the exam, you are supposed to plan your answers. So that is why the answering technique is crucial. Mastering the answering technique is crucial, because if you do not practice the answering technique, which I taught you last week, you will struggle to implement it at your real examination, because you'd be trying to do something new for the first time in your life. So you need practice. Just like anything else in life, if you're trying to do something new for the first time, there's a learning curve which comes into play. You will be struggling when you try to do something for the first time, but with practice, You will overcome all stressful situations, which will give you the ability to develop answer plans within just 30 minutes in each section. So it's tough. I asked you to develop answer plans within 30 minutes, but when you implement it for the first time, you would have taken 40 to 45 minutes. I invited you guys to attempt mock number 1 under exam conditions via our exam platform. And if you did so, if you attempted mock number 1, you know what I'm talking about. You know the fact that you were struggling with the answering technique. That's quite all right. But with practice, you will be in a position to master the answering technique. If so, you will plan your answers at your exam. If you spend 30 minutes per section to plan your answers, then you are focusing on achieving quality, because the markers are under strict instructions to mark answers on their merits. So the marker is going to pick quality over quantity. So I've seen tutors out there saying that in order to gain X amount of marks, you need to include an X amount of words in your answer, which is utter bullshit. That is not how your marker is going to mark your paper, because just imagine that you are actually working for this company, and when your superior is going through your response, the superior is never going to count the number of words or the quantity or the length of your response. Instead, the will try to figure out whether you have addressed the requirement properly, and when developing your evaluations or coming up with your recommendations, the superior will try to figure out whether you have considered what the superior included within each email. So that's exactly what you need to achieve when developing answers at this examination. So you are going to get marks based on the quality of your answer, not the quantity. So in order to nail quality, it's essential that you practice the answering technique, because once you have practiced this answering technique, you will champion answer plans. And when you champion answer plans, you are in a position to implement the answering technique in a successful manner at your exam, which gives you the capability to develop answer plans within just 30 minutes in each section. And if you take steps to plan out your answer, if you take steps to structure your answer properly, if you spend some time to determine which conceptual element should be brought in with the intention of adding value to your answer, when you take steps to determine whether you are developing an answer which is aligned with the requirement, and when you take steps to determine whether your answer, when developing your answer, you have considered what appears within your unseen and the pre-seen, then you are well poised to pass this exam comfortably. So in order to achieve these things during the exam, before the exam, you have to practice these 3 elements. You have to study all areas of the syllabus. You have to learn application and take steps to practice application. So by watching the master classes, you can learn theory and application. Once you have learned theory and application, you are supposed to redevelop answer plans with the intention of refining your application skills. And when attempting mock exams, do it under exam conditions, so that you have the opportunity of practicing your answering, time management, and stress management techniques. If you practice them under exam conditions, you will have the capability of planning your answers at your exam without running out of time. And at the same time, make sure that you are developing well-structured, high-quality answers, which will ensure that you gain the most amount of marks at your examination. All right, so that's what the examiner tells us. And before we move on to the remaining elements of today's webinar, let me quickly tell you what we offer at TCS. So I'm on the SCS page. If you are yet to create a free user account, click on this button and create one. And once you have created a free user account, you'd gain access to our student dashboard. Once you're in this student dashboard, go to My Courses. Under SCS Free, you'd see an Access Content button. Click on it, and then you'd gain access to the recorded versions of the weekly webinars and workshops we conduct. And under the Study Material tab, you'd gain access to the pre-seen mind maps, as well as the answer plan of Mock Exam 1. And under the Mocks tab, you'd gain access to the questions and suggested answers of Mock Exam 1. And via the Exams tab, you will have the opportunity of attempting Mock Exam 1 under exam conditions via TCS's exam platform. As you know, we have developed a replica of the Pearson VUE system, so that you have the opportunity of practicing each mock exam under exam conditions via a replica of the Pearson VUE system, so you can gain a good understanding of how the exam platform works, and also have the opportunity of practicing each mock exam under exam conditions by gaining access to our exam platform. So if you just have access to a free package, you have the opportunity of attempting mock number 1 via the exam platform. So make use of the free resources on offer by clicking on this button and creating a free account. And if you are interested in investing on paid content, check our sample material before you do so. And if you are yet to join our SCS WhatsApp discussion forum, click on this button and join it, because via this group, we will keep you guys informed of the weekly webinar and workshop commencement dates and times. And at the same time, whenever you have a question, you can raise these concerns within the chat. I'm always there to help you guys out. And talking about what we offer 2 packages, the essential course and the premium course. The essential course is designed for those who have completed their OTQs, E3, F3, and P3 OTQs. So you have already learned your theory. And when conducting your preparations, it's simply a matter of fine-tuning your application skills. So under the essential course, you will gain access to the recordings of the weekly webinars and workshops, 6 mock exams with suggested answers, and via these 6 mock exams, we have made sure to cover all syllabus areas. And I've already included an additional mock exam, so you will have access to 7 mock exams this time. And also you will gain access to pre-scene analysis videos. Once you have watched these videos, you will gain an in-depth understanding of what appears within the pre-scene. You need not conduct your own research. We have done it for you. And also you'd gain access to the annotated pre-scene, the industry and financial analysis slides. Let me quickly show you what these resources look like. So as you can see, we have come up with tutor annotations with the intention of summarizing the entire pre-scene and at the same time conducting our own evaluations, which is essential to gain a clear understanding of what is indicated within your pre-scene. And at the same time, we have highlighted about probable exam scenarios which can be tested, and aligned with these exam scenarios, we have highlighted the probable syllabus elements which can be tested at the exam. And developing the mock exams, we have made sure to consider these exam scenarios and to cover the syllabus areas which appear within this pre-scene annotated pre-scene document. And also we have developed a set of slides, thereby conducting an industry analysis. So our industry analysis slides are divided into 4 main parts. In the first part, we have defined your industry. In the second part, we have explained about the competitive landscape of your industry. And in the third part, we have highlighted about industry trends. And based on these industry trends, scenarios will be thrown at you at your real exam. And at the very end, we have indicated real life examples, thereby highlighting how real life companies operate within your chosen industry. And similarly, we have evaluated the financial statements. So we have made sure to keep things simple so that you can easily gain an understanding of the financial standing of your chosen company. So we have evaluated the SOPL, the SOFP, as well as the statement of changes in equity. And also we have conducted a ratio analysis. And when conducting this ratio analysis, we have made sure to compare your company's performance against its closest competitor so that you'd gain a clear understanding of the financial standing of your chosen company. All right, so all these resources are on offer under the essential course. And in addition to these resources, you'd also gain access to the top 20 likely issue slides, which indicate the most probable scenarios which can be tested at the exam. You will gain access to a case study familiarization kit. And once you have gone through this familiarization kit, within 10 to 15 minutes, you will gain an in-depth understanding of the technicalities behind your exam. You will gain access to a tutor-managed live chat and OTQ revision cards. So after attempting each mock exam, if you feel that you are struggling with a certain conceptual element or you cannot remember a certain conceptual element, don't waste time. Simply go through the revision cards to polish up your knowledge in a jiffy. So the essential course is priced at £299. And talking about the premium course is intended for those who are coming through the exemption routes and those who had failed the SCS exam previously. So both these sets of students have the same problem. There are gaps in theory knowledge and issues with application. So with the intention of teaching you all conceptual elements and at the same time teaching you application, we have included some additional resources under the premium course on top of what appears in the essential course. So under the premium course, you'd also gain access to the online mock exam platform on which you can attempt all mock exams under exam conditions, which is the best way to practice your answering, time management, and stress management techniques. You will also gain access to answer plans of all mock exams. So you saw what an answer plan looks like in last week's webinar because I conducted the masterclass last week focused on this type of an answer plan. So you can see that when you have access to these answer plans, it makes your life easy when it comes to understanding the logic behind each answer, when it comes to understanding how you should structure each answer. And rather than having to go through pages and pages of suggested answers, it makes your life easy when it comes to revision when you have access to these answer summaries or answer plans. All right. And on top of that, under the premium course, you would gain access to 15 masterclasses in total. So from mock 2 until mock 6, we have developed 15 masterclasses because in each mock exam, there are 3 sections. 3 sections into 5 mocks come up to 15 sections in total. So focused on each section, we have developed a masterclass with the prime intention of teaching you the logic behind each answer and at the same time teaching you the conceptual elements covered within each section and also to teach you application. So if you have knowledge gaps, if you are struggling with application, the easiest way to learn all the syllabus areas, the easiest way to learn application skills is to watch these master classes. And also we offer one-on-one tutor feedback on 2 mock exams, namely mocks 3 and 5. And this is the type of feedback on offer at TCS. As you can see, we offer in-depth feedback with the prime intention of ensuring that you really understand your shortcomings, because if you don't realize your shortcomings, you won't have the opportunity to take steps to overcome them when conducting revision. So once you receive this type of feedback, you will understand what your shortcomings are, which will ensure that you take steps to refine your technique, overcome these issues when conducting revision. And at the very end, we indicate mark allocations on a subtask by subtask basis. We have also indicated a success rate as well, thereby highlighting the subtasks in which your performance was substandard, because focused on these substandard subtasks, you are supposed to redevelop answer plans on your own when conducting revision after receiving this type of feedback. As you can see, this student has scored just 23.5 marks, and that is why the success rate in each subtask is below par. All right, so that's the type of feedback on offer under the premium course. And the premium course is priced at £849, which can be paid in 2 installments of £424 each. Or if you opt to pay in full, you will save £100 and the price will be just £749. So you can invest on your preferred course by clicking on either of these buttons. And each product is available until the 28th of February 2026. So if you're planning on sitting for the SCS exams happening in Feb, you can start your preparations, which will give you some additional time, which is crucial to invest on your revision. And also, let me quickly tell you what you need to achieve as per our original 8-week study plan, which can be accessed via our website itself. So I know for a fact that some of you are adhering to this study plan. So kudos to you. Keep up the good work. And within this week, you are supposed to direct your attention towards mastering mock number 3. So within this week, we are in week number 4. Within this week, you are supposed to dedicate 7 to 9 hours of study time. And first things first, you have to attempt mock number 3 via the exam platform. Attempt it under exam conditions to practice your answering, time management, and stress management techniques. So as you know, whenever you are attempting the weekly mock exam, your job is not to really refine your knowledge. Instead, your job is to practice your answering, time management, and stress management techniques, because you can refine your knowledge when you watch the 3 master classes which are focused on mock number 3. This is where you will learn the logic behind each answer. This is where you'd learn all the conceptual elements covered within mock number 3. And at the same time, you will learn application. And once you have learned your theory and application, redevelop answer plans on your own to figure out whether you have gained something by watching the master classes, and to figure out whether you are capable of replicating TCS's answer plans. Because as I told you earlier, the examiner tells you that you are going to get marks if you come up with a high quality answer. And the easiest way to ensure that you know how to tackle each syllabus area, you know how to work in regards to application, is to redevelop your answer plans. And once you practice or master mock number 3, then you are supposed to direct your attention towards mock number 4 in a similar fashion. All right, so that's what you need to achieve as per our 8-week study plan. And if you're yet to start your preparations, don't worry. I'm going to share a 4-week study plan with you after this session via the WhatsApp group. And you still have, you know, 4 full weeks at your disposal, a month at your disposal. It's just been 2 weeks since the pre-scene was released. As you know, the gap between a pre-scene release and your exam is just 6 weeks. So you still have 4 weeks at your disposal. So if you put in your heart and soul, if you stick to the 4-week study plan, which I'm going to share with you, you can easily pass this examination. All right, so having said that, let's try to understand what to do to develop confidence in these upcoming 4 weeks. So first things first, it's essential that you stick to the study plan. If you're already sticking to the 8-week study plan, keep up the good work. And if you're yet to start preparations, as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to share a 4-week study plan with you. And if you stick to this 4-week study plan still, you can pass this exam comfortably. And it's essential that you stick to a routine at least in these 4 weeks. So if you're already sticking to a routine, then you won't find this to be something hard. But if you're struggling to wake up in the morning or fall asleep, I think that you have to start, focusing on a routine, because if you do not stick to a routine, you won't have time to spend on education, because it's a tough, a month, given the fact that you have to balance your work, you have to balance your family commitments, and on top of all these things, you have to spend some time on education, which is not going to be easy. And this is a tough examination. So you have to be calm and composed. You have to be positive. You can't be anxious in these 4 weeks. And the first steps towards getting rid of any undue anxiousness or undue negativity is to stick to a routine. So try to wake up and sleep at a predetermined time. If you're struggling to achieve this, focus on your daily meal intake. Because if you don't have your breakfast, lunch, and dinner at predetermined times, you won't have the capability of falling asleep and waking up at a predetermined time. So if you want to wake up and sleep without any hiccups, first things first, focus on your daily meal intake. Have your breakfast at a pre-stipulated time, a lunch at a pre-stipulated time, and similarly have your dinner at a pre-stipulated time on a continuous basis, at least in the upcoming 4 weeks, so that you are taking your first steps towards getting rid of undue stress levels, undue negativity, undue anxiousness in these upcoming 4 weeks, because it's essential that you are calm, composed, and positive. If not, you are going to struggle. And when practicing mock exams, do it under exam conditions, even if you do not have access to our exam platform, even if you have not invested on the premium course, that's quite all right. Whenever you are attempting a mock exam, sit in one place and lock yourself in a room. If you have kids, definitely you need to lock yourself somewhere so that the kids can't bother you. Sit in one place across 3 hours and attempt your mock exam under exam conditions, which is the best way to practice your answering, time management, and stress management techniques. And when doing so, I taught you an exam technique routine or an answering and time management technique last week. So it's essential that you practice this technique or implement this technique whenever you are attempting a mock exam. You will struggle with this technique. That's quite all right, because your objective is to master this technique whenever you are attempting a mock exam, because your knowledge gaps, your application issues can be fixed when you conduct revision. So when attempting a mock exam, your prime objective is to practice your answering, time management, and stress management techniques under exam conditions. So you will go wrong. That's all right. Keep fighting, keep practicing this technique whenever you are attempting a mock exam, because when you are implementing this technique for the first time, you are going to struggle a lot. But by the time you are in mocks 3 or 4, you for yourself will realize that you are managing your time better, you are structuring your answers better, you are managing stress levels better. And this will give you some type of confidence, because when you know for a fact that you have gained something by practicing these three techniques, then this leads to confidence. So the objective is to be positive in these upcoming 4 weeks, and you can achieve a higher level of positivity if you stick to our study plan, because after you are done with the first 3 mock exams, you will see a significant improvement in the way in which you structure your answers, the quality of your answers, and how you manage your time and stressful situations. And this confidence boost is going to ensure that you will definitely stick to this study plan when attempting mocks 4, 5, and 6. All right, so that's what you need to do to develop confidence in these upcoming 4 weeks. And also, it's essential that you take steps to manage your stress levels, especially when attempting mock exams. Because as I mentioned earlier, at the exam, even if you are well versed with how to develop answers concerning each and every subtask, if you are encountering fatigue for the first time, then you are going to struggle. Because as I mentioned earlier, when you are exposed to fatigue, it leads to panic. Sorry, it leads to stress. Stress leads to panic. Panic leads to brain freeze. And brain freeze is a situation where you are trying to read something, nothing goes into your head. You are trying to develop an answer. You cannot come up with anything. And at the same time, you will be extremely emotional. Some of you might start crying. Some of you might become angry with yourselves. Some of you might feel extremely warm or extremely cold. So you will be exposed to these extreme emotions due to the fact that you are panicking, due to the fact that you are experiencing brain freeze. So it's essential that you take steps to avoid brain freeze, avoid stressful situations, avoid panic at your exam. That is why you have to practice the techniques which I'm going to teach you right now. And on top of the answering and time management techniques which you learned in last week's webinar, I want you to practice this third technique as well, which is stress management when attempting your upcoming mock exams. So the easiest way to manage your stress levels is to stick to our answering technique. So as per our answering technique, we are not asking you to multitask. Instead, we are asking you to first focus your attention towards reading, and then focus your attention towards planning. And once you know what to include in your answer, since you have already planned out your answer points, then when it comes to typing, your life becomes extremely easy. All right, so don't try to multitask, especially when operating in a time pressured environment. Because when you try to multitask in a time pressured environment, this is where you will panic. And when you panic, it leads to brain freeze. So in order to avoid a situation where you panic, you have to, in order to avoid a situation you are experiencing brain freeze, you should not panic. And in order to not panic at the examination, you have to take steps to manage your stress levels. So don't try to multitask, especially when operating in a time pressured environment. So rather than multitasking, rather than trying to read, plan, and type at the same time, stick to our answering technique, so that you are fractioning out, you're directing your attention towards these three elements in a fractioned out manner. Because when dealing with most students who has failed this examination previously, when having a chat, what they tell me is the fact that they don't usually spend any time to plan the answer. They do not stick to this type of an answering technique. Instead, what they do is they they read through the scenario, and once they have read through the scenario, they start typing their final answers without spending some time to plan their answer or structure their answer. The issue of doing this is the fact that, let's assume right after reading through the scenario, you have started typing your final answer in paragraph form, and halfway through the answer, you realize the fact that you are headed in the wrong direction, or your answer is not aligned with the requirement, or you have missed out a certain important element which was highlighted within your unseen. When you realize this, then you will end up deleting the entire answer, and you'd have to start from scratch. When this happens, you know for a fact that we have wasted time. And when your brain is always telling you that we have wasted time, you will panic, and panic leads to brain freeze, which is going to disrupt your performance at your examination. So it's essential that you do not fall into this trap, because right after reading through the scenario, if you are trying to type your final answer, you are trying to multitask, you are trying to plan as well as type at the same time. Don't do it. Instead, stick to our answering technique. Don't try to multitask. Instead, focus on reading first. Then once you're done with reading, focus your attention towards planning. And when you're developing an answer plan, even if you go wrong, even when you're halfway through the answer plan, if you realize that you have gone wrong, you have not come up with a final answer which is in paragraph form, you still have saved some time because your answer plan is in bullet points. So rather than having to delete paragraphs and paragraphs of answers, it's simply a matter of deleting couple of points. So that's why you need to stick to this technique, because if you do so, you are taking steps to not to multitask, first things first, and at the same time you are ensuring that towards the last 25 minutes of each section, you are letting your prefrontal cortex rest, or the front part of your brain rest for 25 minutes. So you will understand what I'm talking about in a little while. So in the first 5 minutes, you are supposed to utilize the full capacity of your prefrontal cortex, which is the front part of your brain. So whenever you are involved with rational decision making, you are supposed to utilize your or think through your prefrontal cortex. So at your exam, you are supposed to come up with the best type of evaluations and recommendations, and the effective types of evaluation and recommendations are considered to be rational. So you have to be involved with rational decision making. And if you are to be rational at the exam, then you have to utilize your prefrontal cortex, or the front part of your brain. So when utilizing the front part, when reading through the scenario, you are supposed to utilize your front part of the brain. And then when it comes to planning, again, you are supposed to utilize the front part or the prefrontal cortex. However, when it comes to the last 25 minutes of each section, since you have already determined or planned what you should include in your entire answer, when it comes to typing your answer or expanding your answer plan in paragraph form, it's simply a matter of typing. You are not supposed to think. You have already thought out what to include in your answer. When it comes to the last 25 minutes, it's simply a matter of expanding each answer point in paragraph form, which is easier relative to you trying to plan and type at the same time. So when you do this, you are allowing your prefrontal cortex to rest within the final 25 minutes of each section, which ensures that once you're done with section number 1, when you are in section number 2, when you're reading through the scenario of section number 2, it's as if you have taken steps to refresh your brain or let your brain rest for a little while. As you know, at the exam, you cannot take breaks between sections. Instead, if you stick to this answering technique, you are indirectly ensuring that you are in a position to rest your prefrontal cortex towards the last 25 minutes of each section. So by sticking to the answering technique, you are trying to achieve two objectives. You are not trying to multitask, especially given the fact that you are operating in a time-pressured environment. And at the same time, you are making sure that you allow your prefrontal cortex to rest towards the last 20 to 25 minutes of each section, which is essential when you start reading through the section or the unseen of your subsequent section. So practice this answering technique. Even after doing this, you will encounter stressful situations, especially towards the last subtask or last subtask of section number 2, and in its entirety in section number 3. Why is this the case? Because as I mentioned earlier, by the time you are in section number 3, you have already spent 2 hours of your time, and with this, fatigue sets in. And when fatigue sets in, however much knowledgeable you are, when fatigue sets in, this is when you will feel stressed, and extreme levels of stress leads to panic, panic leads to brain freeze. So in order to avoid stressful situations, I want you guys to practice this technique, which I'm going to teach you. Whenever you are attempting mock exams, whenever you feel stressed, practice this technique. And if you do so, you are in a position to implement this technique successfully at your exam whenever you feel stressed, which will ensure that you are capable of managing stressful situations without um, um, disrupting your performance during your examination. So before I explain what this technique is, let me quickly explain how our brain functions. Then you will realize how you should manage your stress levels in the most effective manner. So as I mentioned earlier, at the exam, you are supposed to come up with the best type of answers. And if you are to develop the best type of answers, you have to think in a rational manner, or in other terms, you have to be involved with rational decision making. And if you are to think in a rational manner, you have to think through your prefrontal cortex, or the front part of your brain. The problem with this is the fact that you can utilize the prefrontal cortex for something like 45 minutes without any issues. However, our brain is developed in a way in which after we are focusing on something for something like 45 minutes, you are expected to take a break. The brain will tell you to take a break. That is when you will experience stress. So at office, when you are focusing on something for an extended time period, such as 45 minutes, then there's a tendency for you to take a break. And when your brain is asking you to take a break, you can easily do so at office, because you can walk off from your cubicle, you can have a chat with your colleagues. If you are into drinking tea or coffee or smoking, you can do so. You can spend some time away from work with the intention of refreshing your brain, so that you can again focus on your work without any hiccups once more. But at the exam, you cannot do so. So at office, after 45 minutes, after focusing on something for 45 minutes, you can take a break. But at the exam, you have to sit in one place across 3 hours and keep doing the same technique over and over, which is not going to be easy. So definitely, even after sticking to our answering technique, you will encounter stressful situations. So whenever you encounter stressful situations, you have to do this trick to make sure that you take a break without actually taking a break. You let your brain rest, and at the same time, you have to make sure that you take steps to switch off a small part of your brain, which is known as the amygdala. So I will explain what the amygdala does. So as I mentioned earlier, you are supposed to think through your prefrontal cortex, but after the first 45 minutes, your brain will ask you to take a break. And when you are not taking a break, the brain functions will shift from your prefrontal cortex to this small part of your brain, which is known as the amygdala. And when the amygdala is in play, you will experience something called a fight or a flight response. A flight response is a situation where the brain is asking you to get away from a stressful situation. So at office, you can get away from a stressful situation, but at the exam, you can't do so. So the flight option is not applicable to you. The only option which is applicable to you is a fight response, or to implement a fight response in which you are supposed to fight a stressful situation. So if you are to fight a stressful situation, first things first, you need to know why you encounter stress. So you encounter stress because your amygdala is in play. So whenever you are encountering stress, when the brain is asking you to give up, without trying to pressurize your brain further, you have to take steps to switch off your amygdala, because if you switch off your amygdala, brain functions will shift back to your prefrontal cortex. Without knowing this, if you try to fight a stressful situation, this is when you will experience brain freeze. Because when you are stressed, there's absolutely no point of fighting your stressful situation. Instead, understand why you are experiencing stress. That is because of the amygdala. Therefore, you have to take steps to switch off your amygdala. And the only way to switch off your amygdala is to focus on your breathing. So whenever you feel stressed at your exam, close your eyes for 2 minutes and focus on your breathing. Inhale through your nose, exhale from your mouth. When inhaling, count to 3 slowly. And when exhaling, again count to 3 slowly. So do this for 2 minutes, which will ensure that rather than experiencing brain freeze, you are taking steps to recalibrate your brain, ensuring that you switch off your amygdala, ensuring that you switch your brain functions back to your prefrontal cortex. Without doing this, if you try to keep moving forward, however much stressed you are, when you are experiencing extreme levels of stress, this leads to panic. And when you panic, this leads to brain freeze. And brain freeze is a situation where you cannot, come up with an answer. You are trying to read, nothing goes into your head. You will be extremely emotional. And because of that, halfway through the paper, you will start to struggle. And when you know for a fact that you have struggled, this negativity is not going to help you at your exam. So that's why most students, 50% of the students at the exam, they give up halfway through because they fall prey to the amygdala overworking. So you have to take steps to switch off your amygdala whenever you feel stressed. So although I'm teaching you this technique right now, when you try to implement it for the first time, you are going to struggle. That's why I want you to practice this technique whenever you are attempting our remaining mock exams. So on top of the answering and time management techniques, you are supposed to practice this stress management technique as well, because without practicing this technique, if you try to implement it for the first time at your exam, you are never going to manage a stressful situation. And also, it's best practice. Those who score extremely good marks at their examination, what they do is, let's assume you are done with section number 1. Once you're done with section number 1, before starting section number 2, before reading through the scenario of section number 2, there's a tendency for them to take a 2-minute break. Although the timer is running out, that's quite all right. Don't see it as something where you are losing your time. Instead, if you take steps to recalibrate your brain before at the beginning of each section, it's as if you are gaining some time. Because if you take steps to manage your stress levels at the beginning of each section, if you take steps to refresh your brain, if you take steps to ensure that you are well capable of utilizing your prefrontal cortex, then you will come up with the best type of answers that is just like you saving some time. So at the beginning of each section, take a 2-minute break. Although the clock or the timer keeps running down, forget about it. Close your eyes for 2 minutes. Focus on your breathing. Inhale through your nose, exhale through your mouth. When inhaling, count to 3 slowly. When exhaling, count to 3 slowly. Once you're done with this practice, you will think through your prefrontal cortex. Therefore, you are well poised to be involved with rational decision making. And sticking to our answering technique helps, because as I mentioned earlier, you can focus on something continuously for something like 45 minutes. And if you stick to our answering technique, you are handling reading and planning within the first 35 minutes. And when you know what to type, what to include within your answer, then it's easy to determine what to type in your final answer, because it's simply a matter of expanding the answer plan, or expanding each point which appears within your answer plan. So I said that rather than focusing your attention continuously across 60 minutes within each section, rather than trying to utilize your prefrontal cortex within the first section for 60 minutes continuously, you are letting your prefrontal cortex rest within the last 25 minutes of each section. On top of it, when you are in your subsequent section, before you start reading through the section or the unseen, what you do is you are supposed to focus on your breathing and make sure that you are you are ready to utilize your prefrontal cortex fully. Because if you think through your prefrontal cortex, you are making sure that you are developing rational answers, and rational answers will ensure that you gain the most amount of marks. And whenever you feel stressed, you know why you are experiencing stress. That is because of the amygdala. And whenever you feel stressed, when you take steps to switch off your amygdala, you are again making sure that you are always thinking through your prefrontal cortex. And it helps to drink some water as well, because when you hydrate yourself, there's an inflow of oxygen into your bloodstream, which helps your brain functions. But the problem is, if you are attempting the exam at home, you cannot have a water bottle with you. And in certain examination centers, the invigilators won't let you have a water bottle with you. And if that is the case, this is out of the option. The only way to ensure that you manage stressful situations, the only way to ensure that you are involved with rational decision making, the only way to make sure that you are thinking through your prefrontal cortex is to practice this breathing technique, which I highlighted right now, and at the same time, stick to our answering technique. So in your daily lives, whenever you feel stressed, practice this technique. because if you do so, you can overcome any type of stressful situation, because whenever we are stressed, we become emotional and we arrive at a wrong decision, because we go for a quick decision which is not always the correct decision, especially when we are pressured, we are under pressure, or especially when we are under stress. So at the exam, rather than being stressed, and due to you being stressed, coming up with quick decisions which are not the best type of decisions, instead you have to be rational. And the only way to ensure that you are rational during the exam is to make sure that you are thinking through your prefrontal cortex. So you have to take steps to switch off your amygdala by focusing on your breathing and practicing our answering technique. So as I mentioned earlier, I want you guys to practice this answering technique, this stress management technique over and over when attempting your remaining mock exams, on top of what you have already learned in last week's webinar concerning answering and time management. All right, so that's what you need to do to manage your stress levels. And if you're attempting the exam at home, I want you to visit this link. I will be sharing this link via the WhatsApp group. So visit this link and get your bearings with the Pearson VUE system, the technicalities behind this system before you walk into your examination. And I'm happy to say that we achieved a 91% pass rate in the SCS exams, which were conducted in August 2025. And the individual who scored the highest amount of marks ended up scoring 121 marks. And this individual, Luca, finished all three subjects, OCS, MCS, and SCS, within just 1 year and passed each stage first time, simply by sticking to our study plan. So you can achieve a similar feat if you are confident enough. And if you are to gain a high level of confidence, it's essential that you stick to our study plan, because if you do so, you are taking steps to gain a good understanding of how each syllabus area is tested, taking steps to ensure you understand how to work on application. And when conducting revision, you are supposed to further refine your application skills, which is essential to pass this examination. All right, so having said that, I'm moving to the Q&A. So if you have any questions, you can switch on your mic and talk, or drop us a message via the chat. I will address all your concerns. I'm going to pause the recording. All right, folks. So thank you very much for those questions. I love it when you are asking a lot of questions, and I hope I addressed everything. And if you want to contact us, you can do it via our website, which is www.study@tcs.com. Visit the website and click on the contact button and drop us a message. Our admin staff will get in touch with you via email during office hours, or you can simply directly email us at info@study@tcs.com. Or if you need instantaneous responses or support, you can drop us a message via this WhatsApp number. And I urge you guys to follow us on our social media handles, especially YouTube and TikTok, because the recorded versions of the weekly webinars and workshops are uploaded onto our YouTube handle. And via TikTok, you'd gain access to 6 videos, which is a good pre-seen mind map. So on your way to office, for instance, on a daily basis, keep watching these 6 TikTok videos over and over, so that you are constantly reminding yourself about the most important points which are highlighted within the pre-scene. Also, we have shared this document with you, which can be downloaded via our student dashboard as well, which is the pre-scene mind map concerning Cewmlator, this time's pre-scene. So, go through this document on a regular basis to keep yourself reminded of what appears within your pre-scene document. And also, I urge you guys to read our blog post by clicking on this blog to gain or to remind yourself about the most important info about Cewmlator, its internals and externals. So having said that, it brings us to the end of the webinar series. So thank you very much for attending these webinars. If you missed the previous webinars, please go watch the recorded versions. And as you know, we are kickstarting our workshop series next week onwards. In each workshop, I will be conducting a masterclass focused on your F3, P3, and E3 syllabi. And I hope you will, keep pushing forward. Stick to the original study plan which we have shared if you're already adhering to it. And as I promised, I'm going to share a 4-week study plan with you after this session via the WhatsApp group. So it's all about putting in all the effort right now Don't wait until the last moment. If you're planning to sit in November, at least now you have to start your preparations. So I hope you will take steps to practice the answering time management and stress management techniques which you have learned, and also implement the application elements when conducting your revision. So thank you for joining. I'll see you guys next week at the F3 workshop. Thank you and take care.